Spend the day with me today and see what happens the days before the show. I get my day started here. I have coffee and something not very healthy for breakfast. Then I go to the showroom and it's usually a full day. And then depending on the day, whether it's fittings, castings, just getting everything ready for the show. Right now, I'm gonna have some breakfast and let's see how the day goes. Getting ready for this couture show, I'm approaching it just like my other shows. I've been showing here for 12 years in Paris and I'm a creature of habit, so the Ritz is a comfortable place for me to stay. The most important thing for this, especially this first couture collection, was to showcase what I do and what I want people to know me for. So it's based around my tailoring. It starts with that gray suit that is elevated to a couture level. And then of course with my shows, there's a story in regards to how the protagonist in the gray suit is feeling her life and drowning in her sorrows, and then is surrounded by more fantastic versions of that tailored gray suit. Paris never gets old. I love just, observing. I get so inspired by people on the street, and there's so much to, be inspired by here in Paris. You never know where it's going to come from most of the time, but it always does. This show started with the song Fade to Grey by Visage. Andrew and I were listening to music and this Visage song came up. There was something about the collection that I wanted to be a little bit somber and not as upbeat, because I do feel things are not always so happy, and so it started from there, but every collection is different. We are here in the showroom. Everything's coming together. There's still a lot of handwork to be done, but we are ready to start. Fittings, it's always the most exciting time to see the clothing actually, on the bodies. And the way I work, it's conversations with my design director, Ty, seeing how we can interpret the story into the individual looks of the collection. So this is ready to fit. So we can fit this today, this we can fit today. Yeah. I love what we do and I love what we represent in regards to a very unique American sensibility that has the luxury of showing here in Paris. Behind me are the boards of the collection. Here on this board, you see the characters that really contextualize the collection in the story. A girl entering a train station and being on a train platform, thinking about her life and almost drowning in her sorrows. And that's the way that the story in regards to the embroidery and the underwater theme, the more almost East Coast preppy iconography comes into play. I do feel like how I approach my collections is through a true American sensibility, and I do like people to see that. But taking that American sensibility and heightening it to the level of being worthy of showing here in Paris. And the seersucker is something that I feel like is very American, but it's never done at this level, and I think that's what makes it appropriate for the collection. One of the fabrics that I use really often, of course, it's gray, it's in a wool crepe, but the idea of gold bullion being used in a radial stitch all over the coat really elevates it to this collection. And then underneath is a coat dress taking the underwater theme, and this is a mermaid, and then on the back of it you see almost the idea of, we're calling it mermaid sushis, because it's like a slice of the mermaid, seeing the actual skeletal features of the mermaid. Each piece is so specific, so it does take a lot of thought in regards to who is actually going to be in each look. And then also too, this being a couture collection with both men and women, I do have some more provocative looks for men. It's provocative because it is such a short mini dress on a guy. And we live in a time that I think it's really interesting that men and women are just more interested in just doing so much more. We're calling them bells because there's an interpretation of the bell in the train station. The bells represent a conceptual shape. The one thing with collections, I do like them to almost feel superhuman and to be unrealistic in a way, because I love the idea of my shows being fantasy and aspirational and elevating clothing to, in a way, an art form. We're going into the atelier, and this is where everything is happening, the magic. I have an amazing team, and you get to see how it all comes together.
We're replacing the whole back and re-engineering all the grosgrain, and these are also grosgrain.
Matching is important. It's Thursday, the show's on Monday, so do the math. What is that? 4 days, 5 days? And there's still a lot to do, but it's all coming together. But this is the fun part. This is really where it gets exciting. There's so much handwork that needs to be done, so you kind of see it in total and you don't realize like each one of the bells, the work that goes into finishing each bell in just the pearl embroidery. And here, the seersucker jacket, elevating seersucker to couture in all the hand beading on the seersucker stripes. You see, of course, Hector interpreted in different ways for the collection. This is the biggest Hector we've done. Yes, Hector is growing. Hector is getting older and growing. So this is the first fitting. Paolo is here, and he will be in the crab look. The most important thing for when I go into the fittings is to get a sense on how the model feels in what they're wearing. It is a mini skirt, so I just want to make sure he has the confidence to be able to wear it. It's great. The length is really good. That is amazing. Anna, the shoes are fine. With the latex, they'll be fine. The shoes? Yeah. It's so nice to see them come to life and not disappointed. Yeah. So it's a good one, ready to go. Now you're getting to see my favorite person in the whole world. So good, so good. How's the latex bodysuit?
Because it's clinging to
Yeah,
the skin.
good. That is so beautiful, wow. Yeah.
You haven't seen the back yet.
We do conceive of everything from head to toe at the beginning, and then there are moments that, sometimes we have to adjust in the bag for this look because you don't want to just, take away from the look. And the bag is a little big, so we're just trying to think. Sometimes I like to be a little corny, and at the end of the show, there will be a woman who is supposed to be the train that's leaving the station, and she will have this amazing headpiece. So that's our train. Her part in the show is very important in regards to the conceptualized version of the train leaving the station and our protagonist not being on the train. It's a very simple headpiece. It goes, Ty can try it on. Here, let me put it on. One thing I like to play and I like to have fun, and I like to, make people laugh. It's the end of the first day of fittings. Got through a lot, but there's still so much to do, but everything is working out really well. We have a little bit to wrap up, but I'm looking forward to show you my first couture show. I'm gonna go back to the hotel. Gonna have some champagne with Andrew and dinner in the room and bed, and then up again, more of the same tomorrow. Cheers, Vogue. See you Monday. Running for me it's almost like my drug. I mean, I do it every day, and it's something that keeps me, kind of sane. It keeps me in shape and keeps me fitting into my clothes. Pretty much been jogging since college. So from freshman year all the way through till now. So it's about, it's close to 25 years now. I do come from a family of 7, and we all had our sport. I think it's kind of a nice way to grow up, with sports. In my collections, you do see a lot of sports influences in the fabrics that I use and the sensibility of my collections. So indirectly, it does inspire me. You do see the same people every morning jogging, and it's funny, after really running in the park for 20 years, you almost know these people, but you really don't. And it's odd in a way because you'll see sometimes these people on the street. You don't know them, but you know them just from running in the park. It's so nice when spring's coming and flowers are out. It's just amazing that this is in New York City. I just came back from Japan, and really running through Japan and the Imperial Gardens in Japan was a great run. Paris, of course, along the Seine is an amazing run under the Eiffel Tower. I have run, I think, 14 or 15 marathons. I ran LA, Chicago a couple times, London once. San Francisco is great. I've run New York, I think 5 or 6 times. New York is actually really, is good just to be able to see the city that way. I don't go to a gym. Central Park is my gym.
Is built on a foundation of hundreds of years of tradition. That's what this episode of Put This On is all about. In a little bit, we'll go talk to the designer Thom Browne, whose goal is to build something new on the back of that tradition. But first, we're going to go to J Press right here in New York City, perhaps the most traditional men's retailer in the world. We're at J Press on Madison Avenue in New York City, visiting with Jay Walter. He runs Made to Measure, among selling many other things here at the store. Jay, welcome to Put This On.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. What was your first job in the business?
I worked for a men's haberdasher called the Manhattan Shop, and they featured Manhattan shirts and products at that time. And I went to Brooks Brothers to start a career in their made-to-measure department, and I stayed there for just short of 25 years. So I have a very short dossier there. These are the famous college scarves, what we call the schoolboy scarves, and have the designated color, and on each garment is the label telling you which institution they represent.
Have you always believed in this sort of classic, specifically American aesthetic in menswear?
In fact, in one of the jobs I had, the owner came to me and he said, listen, he says, if you're going to keep dressing this way, why don't you go work in Brooks Brothers? It's not our look. And I said, fine. They were more on the European.
One of the things that always strikes me about J Press is the contrast between these tailored clothes that are extremely sober and accessories and sometimes tweeds that are borderline outrageous.
Well, that's the combination that works. You know, some men want that conservative suit, and they kind of step out by doing something a little outrageous with their shirt and tie. They just don't, just to make a statement, so to speak.
Well, let's take a look at these shaggy dog sweaters.
Okay. I don't think anybody could object to this. It's as collegiate and American wearing as anything could be. I mean, these are the things like I say, you put them over a gray flannel, you put them over a khaki trouser, even up a corduroy. That's the look.
What were you wearing that the store manager decided to send you off to Brooks Brothers?
I was wearing a button-down shirt, Oxford shirt, with a knit tie, and a blazer that was 3-button and not 2-button, and plain front trousers, just what we do today. And this was 40 years ago. These are the driving caps.
Out of town. 7 1/4. I'm at 7 3. That's okay though. What do you think, Jay? What I always get excited about are the loudest of the loud tweeds. I work from home, so I'm only dressing for myself. And when I'm dressing for myself, I tend to want to wear something that's orange and green.
You could sell a man this jacket with 3 pairs of gray trousers, dark, medium, and light, a pair of khakis, even a pair of cords. As we enter this area, we have our famous neckwear collection. I like this one. Of course, we specialize in a lot of club stripes, animals, elephants, fleur-de-lis for those people who go to New Orleans a lot. I like pocket squares. I tell the customer, he says, should I wear a pocket square? I said, I'll only tell you this once. When God made jackets, he put a pocket there. And I think that, if nothing else, the men who wear blazers, I tell them, you must put a pocket square there, because you're telling the world you know how to dress by just putting it in your pocket. Because when people see you for the first time, they're looking at your clothes. They're looking to see if your shoes are shined. I'm wondering how long it'll take to really get back to where men are going to want to wear clothes. And I think when they get tired of not dressing and they put on a decent garment, whether it's a sport coat and slack or it's a nice suit, they're going to get a lift that they're going to say, you know, this is the way I want to really present myself to the world.
Thank you so much for taking the time to show us around. It was really a pleasure.
The pleasure was mine.
First, learn and understand the rules, then break them.
This episode of Put This On is all about tradition, and this interview is about reinterpreting tradition. My guest is the menswear designer Thom Browne. We're in his store here in New York City. He's well known for his charming tweaks to menswear tradition. Thom, welcome to Put This On.
Thank you very much.
So I wonder, you went to college, but you didn't go to fashion school or design school.
No.
You have a degree in economics, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
What led you into this career?
In a way, I went to school and I didn't really know what I was going to do past school, and that's why majoring in economics, I came from a family that was more business-oriented. It basically started with finding vintage clothing while I was actually acting in LA and reinterpreting what I would buy in vintage stores and adapt it to myself. And that being really the start of it. I loved old Oxford suits, old Brooks Brothers suits, like really classic old suits that out in LA everybody got rid of when they moved to LA because everybody was basically in jeans and t-shirts.
When you started Thom Browne, what were the traditions that you wanted to celebrate and embrace?
Really well-made American clothing much of the worlds of J Press and Brooks Brothers. It always starts with a classic, like a very classic point of view. And one of the most important things is the quality. Even when I do some pretty out there things for my shows, I want to make sure that people know that it's as seriously made as my classic gray suit.
So you made this amazing skirt suit, which was a suit with a skirt.
Which one? And more than one.
Tell me what you like about putting something as outre as a dude wearing a skirt in the context of a man wearing a suit that in many ways is as traditional as you could create.
Well, I mean, especially when I put my shows in front of people, I want to make sure that I make them think. I think anything that's well made will never go out of fashion. So I think that's probably the most important thing for me. In one of my shows, I did a three-legged trouser, which was as seriously made as all of my two-legged trousers.
I forgot about the three-legged trousers.
Yeah.
Those were great.
When you look at even images from the 50s and 60s, which is where the sensibility of most of my inspiration comes from, there was, not as much of a choice for guys, which I think made it a lot easier. And the simplicity of a guy just having almost like a uniform to put on. And I think there's something really powerful and very masculine about just a simplicity of a uniform, in a way.
So much of your inspiration comes from this era in American history, this sort of man in the gray flannel suit time. And that's something that American culture as a whole rebelled against.
Basically, the world of jeans and t-shirts, or that casual world, became, I think, a really horrible new establishment. And my world of jackets and trousers became the anti-establishment. One of the most disappointing things, I think, with guys and girls these days, if they don't have a point of view, or if they don't really know themselves, or they just go along with what everybody else is doing, I think one of the most attractive things about a person is if they have the confidence to actually be themselves and don't mind being, not like everybody else.
Thom Browne in the Thom Browne store in New York City.
Really from the beginning, I wanted to be outside of the world of fashion. Being on my own was very important, and I think it will always be important. I don't like a lot of stuff, and it's just not my thing. There are specific things that I'd like to be across all my spaces, that being the terrazzo floor. I don't have mood boards around. I don't have literal references for collections. I like not having them in front of me because you forget enough about it that it's easier to make it your own. The tailoring aspect of what I do, I think, is very in tune with the way that I live. Gray is a color that I use in every collection. For me, there is a lot of color within the world of gray, almost timeless color. I never thought I would reference my father as much as I do. He wore a suit every day because he just did. He never thought about clothing, and that was just something that he wore. I love to almost keep pushing the idea of almost uniformity and the idea of maybe not as much choice. I think there's something really refreshing when things don't change as much. We all dress very similarly. I mean, that's a big conversation because I like people to come to work and feel like they are entering into what they're designing for. Of course, I want to be professional, and I think that's important. But I do like that everybody feels like I'm almost like their father. I do love being with my design staff, and that's where I prefer to be, but there are things I have to do within my own office. It almost represents the more serious side of what I have to do. A lot of the furniture does move around from the store to my apartment to here. I am the worst sketcher, but I do have conceptual sketches for looks in the show. I like to challenge myself, and I like to challenge everybody here in a way that we're doing something that is very special. I like to put interesting ideas in front of people, and as a designer, I think that's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's ready to go. Yep.
Thank you, Amy.
When we first met up with Thom Browne more than 2 years ago in Paris, Nevada,
I know.
at his studio in view of the Eiffel Tower,
Yeah, I like the navy of this.
the fashion designer was putting the finishing touches on a collection he'd unveil the very next day. Pressure's on, huh?
Yeah, and I'm very competitive.
24 hours later, backstage.
Welcome to the world.
Welcome to the world. A world uniquely Thom Browne. At its core, a highly theatrical, Feast for the Eyes fashion show Thom Browne is known for. The kind of event that draws A-list celebrities like rapper Cardi B, who Browne dressed for the 2019 Met Gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
How did you feel in that gown?
A little heavy, but I just felt amazing. I felt so confident. It was beautiful. It was bold.
But who is this curiously dressed, somewhat shy American in Paris? Thom Browne grew up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, middle child in a family of 7 kids who all played sports. Thom was a swimmer.
What does your family think about what you do?
I think they just get a kick out of it. And I think like me sometimes, how did that ever happen?
Almost by accident, he came to New York, where he still lives today, worked as a salesman for Giorgio Armani, and then a designer at Ralph Lauren, where he learned success in fashion is largely driven by creating a signature look. So in 2001, Thom Browne reimagined the classic men's suit.
I was doing something that nobody cared about, and people said that to me.
You thought it was a great idea, but nobody else did.
No, I mean, it took almost 3 years for even the first stores to entertain the idea of what I did.
People thought he was a little nuts, right?
People thought it was really weird. I mean, really, like, who wants to see, 4 inches of a guy's ankle?
The Thom Browne shrunken suit eventually caught on. Vanessa Friedman is chief fashion critic at the New York Times.
He was really like the first breakout menswear designer that America has produced in decades.
Hong Kong, and it's an amazing city. It's a really vital city. It's very warm here. It's so funny, and there is a story, because I've been actually with Joyce they were really one of my first customers. The collection didn't do so well initially because I do use heavier fabrics, and the construction is heavier. Really, testament to Joyce and really sticking with designers and being true to appreciating everything that a designer does. But now it's doing really well. When I travel, I pack very simply. I travel just with easy to pack, just gray suits, gray ties, white shirts. I always travel with my briefcase, so it's something I always take. Always gray suits, and a couple of them different shades of gray, so it doesn't look like I'm wearing the same suit every day. And then you can never have just too many, enough white shirts. I guess it's the uniform for not only traveling, but just for my life in general. Well, I love, because I'm not a shopper, I love in cities seeing what real people do and getting my shoe shined, getting my hair cut at a local barber. Really charming, authentic, good experience. But then we went to the 1880, which is amazing. So great lunch, and then just back here. The display in the window, you see what the collection was and what the show was about, and it was a very personal collection. It was based off of like an Amish barn raising. I grew up in Pennsylvania in the Amish country, and so the collection was very loosely based off of that, and the shapes of the collection were based off of squares and rectangles. So, and then this is also an Irish knit the Irish knits, actually, I grew up wearing Irish sweaters because my entire family, I come from a family of 7 kids, so we all had Irish knit sweaters, and when I think of these type of sweaters, I went directly to the mill in Ireland that made the sweaters that we had as kids. It's important that people see a lot of who I am in my collections, and that's one of the stories. And also too, in regards to like a lot of the references, the sports references in the collections are very personal to me. I grew up doing sports, and also too, because of what people see and how provocative sometimes my collections are, I like to ground it in something more understandable to guys, and I always find sports being very understandable to some place that really has been so supportive, and see the people here, and everybody here has been so supportive, so it's been a good trip.
What sets Thom Browne apart?
His originality. Most time you look at an image from a show or from a collection, you think, oh, nice skirt, and then you go on to the next one. Thom's pictures are very, very hard to forget, and they are crazy, and they are extreme, and sometimes they're disturbing, and sometimes you really hate them, but you remember them.
Brown has dressed everyone from Michelle Obama at her husband's second presidential inauguration to singer Katy Perry at Joe Biden's first. He has a huge following among athletes like LeBron James. He's so successful, in 2018, the fashion designer with no formal training sold a majority stake in his company for an estimated $500 million.
I've never designed addressing what the trends are or what's going on right now. I've always designed almost selfishly for myself.
Even now, at a time when other fashion brands are folding, Brown is expanding, launched a kids line, and says sales at his company are up because more people are dressing up.
I've been through the dress down generation, I've been through the streetwear generation, I've been through all of it, and I've never changed the way that I've approached my collections. They're not coming to me for dressing down.
Just 2 days ago, Thom Browne was at it again with another Fashion is Theater show featuring one of his unconventional signatures, and in skirts.
I love the idea of men entertaining different things for themselves, or just opening their eyes to different ideas.
But you don't personally know what it's like to wear a skirt, or have you tried one on?
I have actually never tried one on.
Oh, come on, Tom.